Barcelona, 1983. Morning light falls across a classroom of 9-year-olds. And one girl in particular listens to her teacher explain something that doesn't yet make sense. Starting next year, she's told, every subject in her education, mathematics, science, history, all of it, will be taught in a language she has only ever heard whispered at her grandmother's kitchen table. She has no idea why. To understand it, we have to go back 44 years, to the moment a government decided that language should never be taught to a child again. The year is 1939. Francisco Franco has just won a brutal 3-year civil war, and he inherits a country fractured along old regional lines. Catalonia has its own language, its own institutions, its own long history of resisting rule from Madrid. For a dictator trying to weld a broken nation into one obedient state, that's not a cultural footnote, it's a rival loyalty. A child raised thinking in Catalan grows up thinking of themselves as Catalan first. And Franco cannot build the Spain he wants out of people who think of themselves as anything other than Spanish. So he doesn't simply discourage the language. He removes it from every place a government can reach. Catalan is stripped from classrooms. Spanish becomes the only language permitted in government offices, in newspapers, on street signs, in courtrooms. Teachers caught using it lose their jobs overnight. Writers who publish in it risk prosecution. This isn't one dramatic act. It's 1,000 small enforcements, repeated for decades, until an entire generation grows up believing their own mother tongue only belongs behind closed doors. And it's inside those closed doors that something the regime never fully accounted for begins to happen. In a dim kitchen, lit by a single oil lamp, an elderly woman leans close to her 7-year-old grandson, teaching him words that by law no longer officially exist. This becomes the pattern, repeated in homes across Catalonia for the next 36 years. Not organized resistance, not political defiance, just families quietly refusing to let something die. That refusal came with real risk. In 1940, Catalonia's own exiled president, Lluís Companys, is handed over to Franco's government, imprisoned and executed after a trial that lasts less than an hour. The message reaches every family, still teaching their children in secret. This was never merely a disagreement over language policy. This is a test of who gets to remain who they are. And still, at kitchen tables across the region, the teaching continues. Grandmothers sing lullabies in the only language they've ever fully known. Fathers correct their children's grammar the same way another father might correct an arithmetic mistake. Except this lesson could never leave the room. Decades accumulate. The boy from that first kitchen grows into a man, and eventually teaches his own daughter at the very same kind of table, by the very same kind of lamp. The chain doesn't break, it just gets longer. Then, in 1975, Francisco Franco dies. Spain turns toward democracy, and one of the first things returned to Catalonia is control over its own schools. What follows isn't cautious, it's total immersion. Every subject, every classroom, taught entirely in a language that had survived on nothing but kitchen table loyalty for 36 straight years. Which brings us back to that 9-year-old girl in 1983, sitting in her Barcelona classroom, still not fully understanding what's about to change. She isn't being taught something new. She's being handed back something her grandmother spent 4 decades quietly protecting. Passed hand to hand, table to table, waiting for the day it would finally be safe to exist in daylight again. It was never eradicated. It went quiet, and it waited. Some truths take decades to surface. Some take centuries. Black File Society exists to bring them back. If stories like this belong in your feed, subscribe. There's more where this came from.